What is happening, guys? I want to jump on and deliver this training on how to reset your habits and how you can start to build and break habits and what's actually involved in building and breaking habits. I want you to walk away today with some usable strategies that will be built for your specific habits. So we're going to be interactive in this workshop. So let's dive in. Just how important are habits? So habits make up 70% of your waking daily actions, and that would definitely impact your nutrition. That would definitely impact your training. So safe to say, habits are very, very important. So think about that for a second. 70% of what you do on a daily basis when you're awake is habitual. So what I want to do is I want you to understand that, but I want you to understand you can influence that. So let's have a look at the habit audit. So what I'm going to need you to do is to pause the video right here and list down 3 habits you want to do and 3 habits that you want to stop doing. Okay, ready to rock. Let's dive into how we're going to start to pick apart those 3 habits you want to stop doing first. Let's look at dropping the bad habits. I want you to think about how you can make that habit invisible. How can you make it invisible? How can you make it unattractive? How can you make it hard? And how can you make it unsatisfying? So this is referenced from Atomic Habits. Great book, but it's a really usable strategy. So how can we make that any of those bad habits invisible? I want you to think about that, and I want you to make some notes as we're working through this. How can you make it unattractive? How can you make it hard to do, and how can you make it unsatisfying? So really easy example of make it invisible. If we don't want to use our phone before we go to bed, it's disrupting our sleep, we simply leave it outside the bedroom. I work with a client who bought an old-fashioned alarm clock because they really dived all in on actually not using their phone before bed. And it worked out great, much better sleep, better mood, make better food choices, and ultimately way more energy throughout the day. So just a one little change like that can really impact it. How can you make those habits invisible, unattractive, and hard to do while making it unsatisfying? And a big factor with this is your environment. So again, you can pause the video right here, and I want you to note down how you can make those habits invisible, unattractive, make it hard and unsatisfying to actually do. Okay, moving on, let's get it done. Let's look at how we can start to make the good habits stick. Out with the old, in with the new or the good. So how can we make our 3 habits that we've set out obvious? How can we make them attractive? How can we make them easy? And how can we make them satisfying? So it's everything that we just worked on, but it's in reverse. So how can we make it obvious? And a really good example of that is I want to improve my nutrition and I want to start eating breakfast. So what can we do in the mornings to make it obvious what's going on? Maybe front of eye, when we open the fridge, we know what we're going to eat for breakfast, and that's the first thing that we see. Often lack of preparation leads to frustration. And so when we look at making it obvious, could we leave it out in the morning? Could we start to leave our favorite cup out? Again, the more we can actually build a pattern of these habits, because keep in mind, the brain remembers the pattern, the build up, and the process. Not so much the actual act of doing it, it's the process. So how can we make that process a little bit easier? How can we make it attractive? How can we make it great to do? How can we make it easy? And how can we make it satisfying? And again, that could be a reward. And we don't always have to use food as a reward. We can actually use a good massage. We can use something that will help us to upregulate that excitement, that feel-good factor to make it satisfying. So again, I'm going to stop the video, or you can stop the video for 60 seconds, and I want you to note down with your 3 new habits how you can make those obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying. Okay, let's dive into the next section. Okay, let's look at how a habit is born. So when we look at a habit is built. A good habit that we want to make is built of 2 factors. It is the habit, whether that habit is context independent or dependent, and whether it has a high degree of limbic friction. So would I have a chance of doing that habit if I'm tired, stressed, or angry? And that habit, if it is dependent on those, then that has a high degree of limbic friction. Then we look at the context of the habit. Is it independent or dependent? And let me give you an example of that. So if you are away, you always brush your teeth. That habit is context independent in that the environment doesn't really matter. So again, wherever you are in the world, you brush your teeth. It's a habit you've always been doing. So looking at your habits that you've set out, ask yourself for a second, stop the video for 60 seconds and ask yourself, are these habits context independent or dependent? In that, does the environment impact whether I can do these habits? And is there a high degree of limbic friction to these habits? And again, that's coined by, can't think of his name now actually, but great, really, really good doctor. He coined the term limbic friction. So again, really, really important. Note down, stop the video and ask yourself, if I was tired, stressed, or angry, would that impact the habits I want to put down now? And it's just come back to me. Dr. Huberman is his name. Fantastic guy, neuroscientist, brilliant, brilliant mind. Okay, moving on. Step number 2. Okay, so habit placement. Looking at phase 1 of the day and phase 2. Now that should actually say phase 2, not phase 1 twice. But let's look at when we should put in the habits that have a high degree of limbic friction. The ones that we know if we're tired, we're not going to do. Those are better in phase 1 of the day, early morning and afternoon. And again, this is Dr. Huberman's strategy on how to build habits, but a fantastic one that I want to share with you. So phase 1 of the day, we have got a lot of chemicals and hormones in the body that make it easy for us to overcome hard to do habits or high limbic friction habits. And so that's a really, really important time to start to implement new habits because you've more chance of making them. When phase 2 of the day hits, we're more tired, we're a little bit more lethargic, and we have less chance of doing those. So again, that degree of limbic friction may be too much for us to do. So an example of that would be an exercise session in the morning and maybe some journaling in phase 2 of the day. It's a little bit less strenuous for us to do. And again, last point on this, your brain likes habits to be formed at consistent times. When you do that, your body learns, it learns the process, and it helps you to stick at that habit. So pause the video for 60 seconds and I just want you to take a look and ask yourself, what could you put into the morning when you're really well energized, where you've got all those chemicals and hormones elevated that help you to complete those habits? What can you put in the afternoon from your 3 habits? Okay, moving on. Okay, sorry, we've gone backwards. Okay, let's look at our cornerstone routines. So you can see this lady here is exercising, and this is something that I've coined myself personally, is a cornerstone routine. And a cornerstone routine or habit has multiple benefits, and you can see that right below. So again, when we exercise, we make better food choices. So again, eating, if we have a habit that we want to eat better food, it's much, much easier when we're exercising, so it spills over. So that is our cornerstone habit, in that it impacts us having better habits later on in the day and maybe implement those habits that we want to do as well. It helps us with our work. It helps us focus. It helps us sit down and get progress done inside our business or inside the office, wherever it is in our careers. But if that's a new goal, habit you want, then progression in your career, then exercise is a great place to start. If you've a goal of eating better food and more nutritious food, then exercise will help you to do that as well. And solely on their own, they mightn't work. But again, if you include exercise, it's that cornerstone routine, and it really helps. Helping other people and being more supportive for other people, if that's one of the habits you want, well then exercise impacts that too. So you see how impactful these cornerstone habits are, and they help us to do other habits better. So we need to visualize the habit. So your brain doesn't remember the habit, it remembers the process. So when you've done your new habit, visualize when you've done your new habit, sit down, visualize the process that you actually went through to do these new habits. Maybe do it 2 to 3 times on the ones you've written down, and then sit down, visualize that process, and you have a 10-fold increase in actually completing that habit, because the body, the neurons essentially, or the nerve cells, they tend to learn the process that it's actually coming through, and they're used in visualization too. So absolute gold when it comes to your new habit visualization. We're going backwards again, excuse me. Okay, habit stacking. So What context-dependent habits do you already have, like brushing your teeth, and what new habits can you attach to them? So habit stacking, again, is coined in the book Atomic Habits. Great book, you should have a read. But these are some key points that I think will be helpful. So again, what context-dependent habits do you already have? So I'll give you an example. Everybody brushes their teeth. Maybe you want to drink more water. Attach that to that habit. So link it together, and you've more chance of doing it rather than just starting a new habit, brand spanking new. So again, I brush my teeth, I drink a pint of water. When that's done consistently, can we attach another habit? You can stack your habits together. It doesn't just have to be one. You can start stacking them incrementally till you have a chain of habits built. So again, have a little pause of the video for 60 seconds and ask yourself, what context dependent habits do I already have, and what new habits can I attach to them? Okay, perfect. Moving on. So, key takeaways from this training today that I hope you found value in. And I zipped through because there's a ton of content, but I want to make it digestible, short, and I want to make sure you can walk away with some actionable plans. So, key takeaways: 70% of your waking actions are habitual. The time of the day matters. Again, when we have that great overload of positive energetic hormones and chemicals in the body, we've much more chance of building that habit that we have that with that high degree of limbic friction or frustration or anger or whatever the case may be. We can really overcome that. Your environment shapes your behavior. So again, a great a key from the Atomic Habits book is environment is the invisible hand that shapes human behavior. So environment is key. Cornerstone habits build other habits. Do it a few times, then visualize the steps and stack, stack, stack. So again, I hope you took value from today's training. This is one of the systems that I implement inside the Deep Health program. We have a ton of systems to break down habits, build habits, and nutritional strategies. But sometimes it actually only takes one. And I don't know, and again, if this triggered anything with you, maybe you've just went off and go, one of those systems is amazing, and that works well for you. Please do click the button below to find out more about the Deep Health program. If I don't see it on the other side, however, thanks so much for spending the time with me today, and I hope you found that amazingly valuable.